So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Monica McCoubry, and I am the Wildlife Education Specialist for the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. I'm located here in the Lincoln office. And like I just said, I'm really excited to talk to you guys about animal love. Valentine's Day is coming up, and it's always fun to talk about this subject because there's a lot of interesting and neat, sometimes extreme and scary things that happen in the animal kingdom as far as mating and rituals and that courtship behavior goes. And so we're going to talk about a few of them in Nebraska tonight, but we're also going to mention some that are not in Nebraska. So there's some fun things to be had tonight. I do just also want to point out that even though we are going to be talking about kind of a funny and humorous subject, it is all scientific based. So we are going to talk science tonight, and we're also going to put in that kind of fun humor as well. So everything is going to be science-based and factual, but we will have some fun with it. So. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody so that we can go ahead and get started. Again, if you have any questions or fun, appropriate comments, you are more than welcome to put them in the chat box. Sorry, I'm just letting some people in here. All right, and then get my screen going here for you guys. Sorry, there's like 1,000 people trying to get in all of a sudden. All right, here we go. Hopefully everyone sees the really large screen and not the presenter view. So, all right. So like I said, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to put them in the chat. I am on my own tonight, so give me a little patience here and I will answer them. I have some breaks kind of set aside throughout the program, and we can kind of talk and answer some of those questions then. So. All right, hopefully everyone's here. We're gonna have a good time tonight. As the title kind of mentions, Dude, Let's Talk Animal Love. It's gonna be a very informal program, so it's not gonna be a lecture or anything like that. It's gonna be fun, and I got some cool pictures in here, and hopefully you guys learn a lot about animals and think about that during this Valentine's Day as well. All right, just again to be sure, please feel free to use the chat, but when you do use the chat, just make sure that everything, the content that you're commenting on or asking questions on is about the topic at hand. Just everyone be nice to each other, use appropriate comments. We do have the right to remove you if you don't, but I'm sure that we won't have any problems tonight. All right, so let's talk animal love, but first of all, we have to kind of talk a little bit about how awkward dating can be. There's a lot of rejection, there's heartbreak. It's sometimes extremely awkward with texts, with in-person dating, with blind dates. Should you use a dating app? Should you swipe left or right? What kind of dating app should I use? Should I wait 3 days to call? Should I have asked for a nightcap? There's all these questions that go through your head, and a lot of times people just don't really feel like they want to date. It's too awkward, it's too hard, there's too many things to remember. We have it pretty easy though, compared to some animals in the animal kingdom and the things that they have to go through just to get a mate. So when we talk about those things, animal mating and animal dating is also really weird. Gift giving, that's not a big deal. I love gifts. Who wouldn't want a gift? Dancing's always good. But there's also things like urination and cannibalism, love darts, tickling. We'll get to that later, but tickling. And then also something called booming. So I'm going to let your imagination kind of use those words and think about those things as we talk about some of the animals and how their courtship behavior works. All right, so first off, I want to kind of talk about some of the native animals that we have here in Nebraska. This is always nice because I love to focus on Nebraska animals. We live in Nebraska. You're more likely to see these animals that I'm talking about now rather than like a blue whale or a clownfish that we're going to talk about later. So here's some animals that we have in Nebraska that we're going to talk about. One of the things, when I always think of animal love, I think of fairy tales, I think of long romances and things that kind of last a while. So monogamous relationships are actually not very common in the animal kingdom, depending on the species that you're looking at. For instance, birds are pretty known to have monogamous relationships. So one mate for the rest of their lives. Sometimes if something would happen to their mate, they would go find another one. But a lot of birds actually spend time together all the time. A lot of mammals actually do not have monogamous relationships. They mate with multiple people. They have harems. Lots of different times the male mates with multiple females, the female mates with multiple males. Just again, depends on that species. One of the cute little guys that I do want to talk about today are prairie voles. These cute little animals down here are very similar to a rodent, a little bit different, but they're about the size of a small little mouse. These two guys are known for their monogamous relationships. They're very faithful and affectionate towards each other. When they're stressed out, they give each other hugs and kisses. Who wouldn't like that? The male and the female spend about 50 to 60% of their time together, if not more. So they are always together pretty much. If they're hanging out together, you know, having dinner or going skating, whatever they're doing, if another member approaches them from their another prairie vole would approach them, they chase them away because they want to be together and that's their time to be together. The only thing that scientists have found is that something that kind of stresses and tests their relationship and their monogamous relationship is when they are drunk. Yes, you heard me right, when they are drunk. So oftentimes many animals will eat fruits that have been sitting for a while and they have become fermented. So they have alcohol in them, and if they eat too much of them, they become inebriated or intoxicated. So same thing with these voles. If they eat too much of that, they tend to stray from each other. So unless they are drunk, scientists actually tested their fidelity under the influence, if males and females, they looked at this. Females, they found that when they are drunk, it actually makes them go to their male or their mate even more. They feel closer to their mate. They hang out even more. Males tend to stray a little bit. They tend to go maybe window shop a little bit and look for another female. So it's kind of interesting to think about that when that happens. But otherwise, they are completely monogamous for the most part and are known for their monogamy. All right, another animal that I want to talk about. This one's one of my favorite things to talk about, these nursery web spiders here. I have a good friend on this webinar tonight, and so I'm sure that she is loving the picture of the spider. And so I hope that you like talking about spider sex just as much as you like talking about spiders themselves. So one of the things that these guys do is the males will try to give the females some food in the hopes that they will mate with each other. So nothing says I love you more than a nice juicy insect or something like that wrapped in a pretty little package and given to the female. If the female basically accepts that package and that food item, she will allow the male to mate with her. But sometimes the male is a little lazy. I don't know where that would come from, but sometimes the male is a little lazy and he will eat it before giving it to the female. What he will do is he will suck out the insides and present her with an exoskeleton. So for instance, if he eats a small little beetle, he will suck out all the good stuff on the inside, and then he will give that female the hard exoskeleton or the outside of that animal to try to fool her into mating with him anyway. So not doing the work, and then hopefully he will get sex. Sometimes that works, that it will fool the female. Sometimes the male doesn't even bother with an exoskeleton. He will simply just not give her a gift and pretend that it is a stick or a pebble or something. He'll wrap that up and then give it to the female in hopes that she won't notice, and then will still mate with him anyway. Oftentimes the female is not wanting to be fooled. So she will weigh the package. If it's up to her standards, she'll mate with a male. If for some reason she figures out that it is not real food, or if it's just an exoskeleton, she will end that relationship immediately and will not let the male mate with her. I mean, can you blame her? The male lied, so I don't blame her. All right, we're going to move on to fish now. So we always, unfortunately, hear nice guys finish last. Well, in this case, nice guys finish first. sometimes. So fish are actually very territorial when they're mating. A lot of fish will have two different types of males. They have what we call territorial males that are big and aggressive. They're the ones with like the jacked up trucks that you always see. And then we also have something called sneaker males. These are going to be a little bit older. They're not as fast. They're not as big as these territorial males. So they kind of wait on the outskirts and kind of just wait to see what happens after the territorial males have done their stuff. Bluegill are a little different. They have a third category called female mimics. These are very old males that have mated multiple times and have kind of lost their jazz a little bit here, but they still want to mate. So they wait on the outskirts, and they're small enough where they actually look like a female fish. If they're smart about it, they can actually get the sneakers and the territorial males to believe that they are a female and have them come towards them. And then at the last minute, they will swim over to the female and try to mate with her. So the idea is that they can fool those other two because they know they're not as fast and they're not as territorial and they're not as big as those other males, but the hopes that they are going to be faster and smarter by trying to get to that female and swoop in and fertilize her eggs and mate with her before those other guys can. All right. So one of my favorite things to talk about is reptiles. I love snakes, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this mating ball incident. So there's actually a place in Canada. It's a yearly thing. When their garter snakes come out of hibernation, there's an area that they always go to. And this garter snake mating ball, they one time counted 75,000 garter snakes, 75,000 garter snakes in one area trying to mate with females. I'm not sure how many males and how many females there were, but overall they counted about 75,000 garter snakes in one area. So as soon as males and females come out of hibernation, the first thing on a male's mind is that they have to mate. They don't go find something to eat. They don't go find a place to live. They got to go mate. So in these large mating balls, there might be only a couple females in there. So the males will actually have to fight and wrap around the female trying to get to her amongst all these other males. Once a female has mated with a male, she will release a pheromone or a smell chemical that will say, okay, guys, I'm done. I've already mated. And then the males will lose interest. They'll go find something else. Just like the fish, there's also these things called sneaky males. They're a little smaller. They might not be as close to the female, but they can emit a smell that's very similar to the female smell. And so they can, again, try and fool other males to get to come to them. And then once those males are away from the female, he will slip back in and attempt to mate with her. One of the things that they have found is that sex is actually very hard on garter snakes. No pun intended. I mean, one of the things that they have found is, especially these really large mating balls, it is a lot of physical exertion, especially after hibernating. So people would think that if you sleep for 8 months at a time, you should be ready to go. Waking up from hibernation is actually a really hard toll on a lot of animals. To tell you the truth, as soon as they wake up, they should probably sleep for a few days because their body is coming back to temperature. There's a lot of psychological things and physiological things happening, but they need to go mate right away. So that physical exertion itself after not eating and not sleeping, it's really hard on their bodies, and it actually kills a lot of garter snakes. All right, something else I also want to talk to you guys today about is reptile genitalia. So it is very strange. In the world, there's about 10,000 different types of different types of reptiles, and their genitalia is no different and no less diverse. One of the things is snakes and lizards. They don't have just one, but they have two penises, and we call them hemipenes. The scientific word is a hemipene. And then scientists believe that this helps them and it benefits them during mating because, like you saw, that big mating ball, sometimes they can't get to the other side of the female, and those hemipenes allow them to mate with her on either side. So it's beneficial for them so that they can pass on their genetic information. Female lizards and snakes, they don't have but just one. They have two. We call it a hemiclitoris, and they have two, just like the female or just like the males. This actually wasn't even discovered until 1995. So this is a fairly new discovery, and scientists aren't really sure why they have two. They don't have to mate. It kind of makes sense. Males have two, they should have two, but it doesn't work like that. So we're not really sure why they have that. There's something called a Tuatara, which is kind of like a lizard. It is endemic to New Zealand, which means that it's only found in New Zealand. It doesn't have anything. It just simply has a cloaca where the male puts it over the female and they mate. Very simple. There's something called a central bearded dragon, where females, when they are in the egg, they actually grow a penis. And then as they are closer to the hatch date, it just goes away. We have no idea why, but it's just kind of a weird phenomena in there. Snakes and lizards also have spikes and hooks on their penises because scientists believe that the reason that has that, it's almost like a puzzle, that males and females of that same species, and they need to find each other. So once they do, they hook up and it fits together. So they also believe that those spikes and hooks allow the male to be in there longer, which then ensures success. So they are able to deliver that sperm and they are able to then pass on their genetic information. Alligators too are a little different. They are always erect. They are always ready to go. So when they go do mating, what they will do is they will shoot out their penis, and then it kind of bounces around back like a rubber band. So they are always, always, always ready to go. All right, we'll move away from reptiles here and go to birds. So a little bit lighter note here. We have something in Nebraska called a greater prairie chicken. If you've heard about these animals and if you've seen them during their mating season, which is coming up about March and April, it is one of the coolest things to witness in Nebraska. These males that I have a picture of here, we have males and females, and these males will form what we call a lek. So it's an area where they gather themselves and display their dances for the female. So sometimes you might have 20, you might have hundreds of males in this little area, all dancing for the females. Males will make a really cool booming sound. It kind of sounds like a drum, and this is what they try to do to impress that female. The same time they are doing this sound, this booming, they will inflate and deflate their air sacs. If you can see in the photo, they're orange sacs on the sides of their face. So they inflate them like a balloon and they deflate them every time they call. While they are booming, they will do these crazy dance moves. They'll sidestep, they'll march back and forth or pound on the ground with their feet really quickly. They'll do moves in the air. They'll fly around. Anything to get the attention of a female. The males oftentimes will even spar in this area, in this lek, because they want to show the female that they are dominant. They are the ones that they should mate with. To be a female, it's pretty awesome because you just get to sit back and watch all these males dancing for you. They will do this sometimes for days, for weeks. They'll go to the same spot just about the same time every day and dance for these females. Females will kind of go around and look and see if they see anything they like. If they don't, they come back the next day, or they might find a dominant male to mate with at that time. It just kind of depends on how well the dances of those males go. But again, if you ever get a chance to go see this in Western Nebraska, I would highly recommend it. It is a very, very cool sight. All right. Another fun animal that we have in Nebraska that people don't even know we have are our porcupines. So these North American porcupines are found out in Western Nebraska, and they're very kind of solitary animals. They don't really like to hang out with each other. The only time that they come together is for this mating season. Females, they are only receptive for about 8 to 12 hours. So if they're not around a bunch of males, how do they find a male when they could be so far away from each other? Well, what she will do is she will release a special smell, so a pheromone that basically says, okay, boys, it's mating season. I'm ready to go. And the boys will flock to her yard. So her musk shake, please laugh, musk shake will bring all the boys to her yard. And then the males will be drawn to that smell, and they will actually fight other porcupines that try to mate with this female. So once they find each other, a male and a female, they will begin with nose rubbings. So kind of a cute little thing to start off with here. If the female kind of likes what she sees and she likes this nose rubbing, if she accepts, the male will then urinate all over her. Super sexy. If she's like, yeah, this is up to my standards, they will mate. If she's like, nope, didn't like it, she goes and finds another male. So, and then he will urinate all over her. And then if she likes that one, they will mate. But again, she only has 8 to 12 hours to do this. So they have to find something very quickly. All right. So when we talk about bees, a lot of people always want to know, how do bees mate? Well, it kind of depends on the species that we're talking about. In Nebraska ourselves, we have 20 different kinds of bumblebees. That's just bumblebees alone, and lots of other kinds of bees like carpenter bees and honeybees and things like that. So there's a wide variety of bees that we have in Nebraska. Some of them are very aggressive when it comes to mating, and some of them are adorable when it comes to mating. Bumblebees are one of those that you would not think that would be aggressive, but they are. They're very aggressive. The male will actually knock the queen to the ground and then climb on top of her to mate. We also have something called Carpenter Bees. These guys do a cool little dance. They do some head bobbing. There's about 12 males to every 3 to 4 females, and they have to mate in the air. Otherwise, it will not work. Honeybees, if you remember talking about the drones and the worker bees and the queen, the males or the drones, they mate with the queen one at a time. What will happen then is the drone's appendage is called the endophallus. It's tucked in and inverted into the body. When they mate with the queen, that endophallus will flip and then secrete that sperm in the process. That is his goal. He wants to pass on his genetic information to make new drones to work for the queen. When he disengages, so after they've had sex, what will happen is that his endophallus will be ripped off and he will die. So his whole goal is to mate for the queen. That is his goal. But unfortunately, it is a deadly process. All right, another reptile here. So I couldn't find a good picture of turtles. We do not have tortoises, which is what this photo is here in Nebraska. Very different species, but turtles will kind of just mate when the opportunity arises. If they encounter each other, they'll do it. So it's kind of divided into 3 phases. And if you kind of read through these here, you'll notice that reptiles are not graceful courtship maters. They are not cute and cuddly. They are pretty aggressive when it comes to reptiles. Like turtles and lizards and snakes are very aggressive when they mate with each other. So when turtles find each other, the male will circle and he will shove and bite the female, the shell of a female. The female actually retracts into her shell. It almost looks like she does not like this. And then if she does that, the male rolls her over. The male will then preliminarily mount the female. And if you've ever looked at for instance, a box turtle that we have in Nebraska, their back claws are very long and curved. These are strictly for mating. So it's a good way to tell female versus male. Females won't have those claws because they don't need to have them. So what he will do is he will hook himself into the female's shell so that he can hold on. And then what he will do is he will peck at the female's head. He will often even cause damage. We have 2 turtles in our office, box turtles, and every time that they run into each other, it always seems like the male will try to mate with the female. And it's not fun to watch. It does look like they're fighting with each other. At the very 3rd stage, the male will then mount the female. And then for his sperm to be able to be released, he actually has to go vertical. So either a straight 90-degree angle, or at times what he will do is he will go all the way on his back, on his shell, and then he will mate with the male or with the female. All right, I just have this slide on ducks. If anyone is familiar with ducks, they are kind of jerks. especially when it comes to mating. They look very pretty and they're very cute. They're just not the nicest, I guess, when it comes to mating. So the male ducks, the ones with the green heads here, they're called drakes. Their penis is actually housed inside of their body in a special sac. During sex, what will happen is he will eject his penis from that sac, and it's a weird corkscrew shape. It has ridges and it has backward pointing spines. This is an evolutionarily adaptation because that prevents his sperm from being washed away in the water. So it is an evolutionary advantage to him because then it ensures that his genes and his genetic material is then passed on. Well, females, they also have a very long spiral-shaped vagina with weird like dead end pockets in it, almost like a chastity belt. So drakes are actually very aggressive when they mate. Sometimes three males will try to mate with one female at a time. Oftentimes this results in injury to the female. Sometimes they even cause her death. Again, they're not very nice. They're very aggressive. Female ducks will then position their body so they do not have that full male penetration. This is her way of basically defending herself or protecting herself. And then we talked about all those dead end pockets that her body has. This will then limit the amount of sperm that is deposited from those males. So basically it prevents that unwanted pregnancy. So she will just basically flush it out afterwards, and that is how that she will protect herself. All right. No one likes bed bugs, so these guys certainly don't get any extra points by being cute and cuddly when they mate with each other. So they're already violent and no one likes them anyway. So what these guys will do is the male, very similarly, they are an aggressive mating species. The male bed bug will actually stab the female with this really sharp stick basically, and will inseminate her directly into her body cavity. So they aren't very, they don't have, way to say this, they are very kind of primitive animals. They don't have a very highly developed reproductive system, so it's very easy for them to mate with each other. The male bed bugs, not known for their brains, will often just kind of attempt to mate with anything they see. A lot of the times that is another male bed bug. So when they come across a bed bug, they don't care who it is, they immediately stab each other. And if it stabs the male, it will kill him. Unfortunately, they don't have a protection, whereas the female does. So when they do it with a female, the females actually have a very harder outer coat that when the male will stab her, it protects her from dying. So one of the things that bed bugs, their sperm is actually antimicrobial. So when they do stab each other, it reduces those pathogens from being introduced into the female, because that is how they eat on their victim. So anything that they eat and they get passed on, they don't want to pass that on to the female. All right. So when we talk about love hurting, no one really thinks of snails and how snails would get together and how they do their courtship dance. But what they will do is when garden snails kind of go around, most garden snails or land snails are what we call hermaphroditic. So that just simply means that they have both male and female reproductive parts. So what they do is they find each other by smell and they touch and they kind of recognize chemicals in the air, and that is how they communicate that they are ready to mate with other snails. So what these guys will do is they will touch each other with their tentacles, they'll move in circles, and sometimes they will do this long courtship dance that can last for hours. And then when they're finally ready to mate, some snails, there's about 9 different species, I think, these land snails fire these love darts into each other's body while mating. Now, when I first heard love darts, I'm thinking like Cupid, shooting an arrow, that kind of stuff. It doesn't really go in the air. It's kind of anticlimactic. They simply just kind of get together and it kind of pokes the other snail, and that's about it. So I was thinking like it shoots through the air kind of thing, but apparently that's not how it works. There's a couple different types of love darts depending on the species. Some of them are made of really hard calcium carbonates. Other times they are made of very soft kind of fibrous material like chitin. And then what will happen is that what they do is when they dart each other. If a female or a male tries to mate multiple times, it will fertilize as many snails as possible. So that ensures that they get their, again, genetic material passed on. If you're kind of noticing that animals, their main goal is to pass on their genes. Humans do it for fun, and we do it for many other reasons, but for animals, it's one of the main reasons is to just pass on their genetic material. All right, birds. So when we talk about eagles, these guys are one of those pairs of animals that will mate forever. Their divorce rate's very low. It's only about 5%. These guys will get extremely aggressive though during breeding season. So if another male tries to mate with his female that he has picked out, they will defend their territory necessarily if they have to. So what will happen is both a male and a female will come together and they engage in something called a cartwheel courtship. What they will do is they will fly up extremely high with each other. They lock their talons and then they basically just free fall. And the hope is that they will break apart last minute and not hit the ground. But sometimes that doesn't happen and they do hit the ground. They also might chase each other. They might go up and down and do all these cool cartwheel courtship things. These are their way of bonding with each other. This is like them going on dates or going roller skating or going to a bar. This is their way of bonding with each other. So this is how they mate for life. If you notice a lot of other animals, they just kind of do it and then leave. These guys actually mate for life unless one of their partners dies. But this is how they get to know each other. So this is how they keep that relationship going. All right, frogs. These guys, we have these in Nebraska. We have one species of true tree frog in Nebraska called the Cope's gray tree frog. It's this picture of this guy here. They're mostly found in southeast Nebraska, all the way up to Lincoln, Lancaster County, Omaha. They're very cool animals. They're very tiny, but they have a very similar courtship behavior to those prairie chickens that we talked about earlier. So what they will do is the males will be the ones to call at night to the females. The females, however, have a lot of control. So what they will do is they just sit there, and again, all the males call to them. So what will happen is when the male starts calling, he basically is saying, "Hey, how's it going? My name's Fred. I really like to do this. What about you?" So this is kind of their advertisement call to the female, getting them to understand that he is the dominant male. He is ready to mate. It also tells other males to stay away. This is his area. His females don't come over here. Females, when a frog calls, they prefer really long calls rather than shorter calls because it shows that males have stamina and are physically fit then to pass their genetic material along and have good babies. And that is something that the female wants. There are something called satellite males that they will kind of hang around the outskirts, not really do a lot, just kind of watch the show. And then what will happen is when the dominant males get tired of croaking or tired of singing their song, they will stick in around all of a sudden and then just start calling. And then the female will hopefully mate with them. So they're basically lazy until the last minute and then start croaking in hopes that the female will then notice them. All right, lightning bugs are super interesting, or sometimes people call them fireflies. Each species has a special flicker code that lets other species find each other. So each code will correspond to a different male and female species. However, not all females are to be trusted, I guess. Females of certain species are known to imitate the moves of others so that males will come to her and then she will eat them. Some entomologists even think that it's the sperm in the male and that triggers the urge for that female to do this. Not all fireflies will do this, but only certain species. All right, some turtles, like our red-eared sliders and our painted turtles, they are actually very affectionate. They are not aggressive maters. These guys will actually tickle each other. So one of our animals, our red-eared sliders that we have here in Nebraska, the males will have extremely long claws. If you notice in this photo, the male has really long claws. So when they emerge from hibernation, they begin thinking about mating and they go try to find a female. So they will attract a female. So when they find one, the male will kind of tickle her her face with his claws very gently. If the female is open to this idea, she will then silently and carefully stroke the male's arms. And if they both decide that, hey, this is going pretty well, then they will decide to mate. All right, mountain lions. So we do have mountain lions in Nebraska. We have 3 independent populations kind of out in western Nebraska. These guys, the best way I can decide and say how they mate with each other is they actually use Tinder. So mountain lions, the males, if you will go with me here, they will post profiles of themselves around their territory. And then the females are the ones that will swipe or choose yes or no. So the males, what they will do is these community spaces called community scrapes. So they will actually find an area, they scrape the ground, they sometimes urinate or defecate on this area. That is how they are posting their profile. They're saying, hey, I'm a strong, independent male. I'm dominant. I'm ready to mate. And then when the female comes across that and smells it, that's her signal to say, okay, I need to go find this male because it clearly says that he is ready to mate. It's basically that visual signal then for the females. What will happen is that they will announce their dominance to other competitors as well. So if a male comes across another male's scrape and he smells it and is like, whoa, I can't compete with that, he will kind of go to a different area. All right, so that was a lot of information, but that was our native animals. I only have a couple more, but let's go ahead and take a break. Do we have any questions in the chat? And again, I'm doing the best I can here. Let's see. Prairie chickens are very cool. Someone said that that's on their bucket list in Burwell and McCook. Yes, it would be a great, great place to go. If you have any questions, please feel free again to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll keep going. Oh, someone asked, I wonder if there's any labs that are looking into bedbug sperm's antimicrobial properties for compounds that could lead to new antibiotics. Very, very good question. I would hope that there are some, but I don't know. That's a very good question. All right, so we just have a couple more things that I want to point out to you guys, and then we will have a quick we can answer questions at the end and kind of discuss a little bit more as well. All right, so here are some animals. They're cool mating techniques that are not from Nebraska. So first one I want to talk to you about is anglerfish. So if you've ever seen Finding Nemo, you know that when Nemo and Dory go down into the dark, dark depths of the ocean, they find this fish that has the string kind of attached to like a light. That is an anglerfish. So basically what will happen is the female is in charge. The male anglerfish, what he will do is he will bite the female and then just hang on. He will then permanently attach himself to her and actually lives off of her body like a parasite. So the female then will absorb his body into hers, and then the only thing that she will leave left, or that will be left, are his gonads, which then she will use when she is ready to reproduce. So basically, the whole life of a male anglerfish is just to be on the female and to just be absorbed by her body. So completely weird thing that happens, but still very interesting. All right, clearly we do not have hyenas here in Nebraska. This is one of the coolest things when I was doing this research today. I found this and I just thought it was too weird and cool not to put in here. So female hyenas run the show. Which females should, but anyway, females run the show. They are called alpha females and their groups are called clans. So these really large females, these aggressive females, what they will do is when they are pregnant with a cub, they will pump this certain hormone, it's a male hormone called androgen, into their cubs in hopes that they will become more aggressive when they're fighting for food, and then it will also increase the cub's survival. So this extra hormone will actually make the females, or excuse me, the males mount the females earlier on, hopefully giving them more chance to mate. So again, passing those genetic information on. This hormone, unfortunately though, increases the mother's likelihood that her genetic information will be passed on, but it does hurt the female. It makes her not able to have cubs ever again. So it is her sacrifice to pass that on to her cubs, but then she just needs to understand that, okay, my time is done. It also makes the female's reproductive organs grow very large and very quickly. So one of the things that a lot of people just don't understand, the hyenas are actually very littly researched animals. There's a lot that we still don't know about them, but females will actually have something called a pseudopenis. They actually give birth through the penis, but there is a very, very high death rate among first-time moms. So if you think about it, a 2-pound cub coming out of this very, very small hole kills a lot of females, but the hope is that the cub will survive. One of the things I also found is that when you hear the story of Noah and his ark, one of the things is that he would not want and would not let hyenas aboard his ark because he thought that they were hermaphrodites. And he wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right either. They are clearly not hermaphrodites. There are male and female distinctions in sex, but it does appear that sometimes the female looks like she does have 2 different sets of parts. However, it's not true, but still a very interesting story. All right, so for all of you out there that love Finding Nemo, I'm so sorry, I'm about to ruin it for you. Overall, Marlin, if you remember the dad, he should have been a female, and Nemo should have been his mate. So again, I'm so sorry to ruin Finding Nemo for you here. But what will happen is all of these anemone clownfish, they are actually born male. Every single one of them is born male. However, they will then turn into a female. So they will actually carry both parts, hermaphrodites, they carry both reproductive parts, and then the males will actually, one male will turn into that female for the group. So the female is going to be the largest fish. She will mate only with the second largest fish, so that breeding male, he will be the most aggressive one. The rest of the community then is made up of just sexually immature males. So they kind of just wait until either that female dies, and then the male would take over as female, and then there would need to be another secondary female, or they just simply don't get the chance to mate. Over this transition time, the male will actually suppress the maturation of the juvenile so that they can't compete. So if he's the top male in charge, he wants to make sure that he is on the female so that he can mate. So he does not want these other little guys to take over his spot. So he will eat more food, he will swim faster, he will be bigger than all of them, just to be sure that he gets his chance to mate. So to ruin Finding Nemo for you, in the movie, when Coral dies, Marlin should have actually transitioned into a female, and then Nemo, his son, would have been the only clownfish left in that area. So he would have then become the dominant male. He should have been the mate for Marlin. So it kind of, so sorry, ruins the Disney movie. It was still a great story, but scientifically, this is how clownfish adapt and this is how they mate. All right, our last one for the night that we're going to talk about is a Bauer bird. So there are multiple species of Bauer birds, but all of them will build a structure called a bower. So if you look at this really cool photo, you will notice that there's lots of blue things and then this weird little kind of pile tunnel looking thing of grass. So that is the bower. So this bird will build this pretty little area, and his hope is that a female then will come to that area, see all these really cool objects, and then be like, oh, take me, I'm yours. So depending on the species, depends on the color of objects that male will grab. Different species want different colors. This one I think was a satin Bauer bird. So he is needing to collect blue objects to impress that female. So the male kind of hangs out waiting for a female to come. When he does, he's like, oh my gosh, I want to show you this really cool area. He walks her through this bower. If she gets through the bower, that's kind of her signal saying, okay, let's try this out. So the male will then dance for her. He will do this really elaborate dance. He will have a really elaborate call. And then if she decides, okay, that wasn't too bad, then they will mate with each other. One thing that he will also do is that when she first sees him, he will stand really far away from his bower, making him look way bigger than he actually is. And again, that dominant male will get a lot of the girls. All right. I have one more thing I guess I want to talk to you guys about. It's a little bit of a sensitive subject, but it is scientific. And I mean, could we talk about any more sensitive of a subject? I've mentioned sex and penis how many times, so why not just keep going here? So when we talk about reproduction in animals, again, their main thing is to pass on their genetic material, but sometimes their environment does not allow them to have a female-male couple. Sometimes it is a homosexual couple, and that happens very, very often in birds. It happens a lot in different mammals, and scientists are finding that it's actually quite common in a lot of different animals, especially with our changing climate and our changing environmental factors. So there are many, many accounts of homosexuality in a lot of different types of species. Everything from primates to parasites have found that they have this special relationship. A lot of scientists believe that it is actually an evolutionary advantage. So there's a lot of male-male couples, female-female couples that presents a very good adaptation. They don't have to go find a mate. They don't have to waste all that energy to make an egg. They don't have to waste all that energy trying to get a female or a male. One of the things is dolphins, they actually have sex with a lot of other males because that is how they form their alliances. They have to trust their other species. And one of that trust factor then is then for to bond with each other or to have sex with other males. Fruit flies will do this simply because they cannot differentiate between a male versus a female. They just mate with someone because, again, they have to pass on their genetic material. Scientists have also found that geese, even though a very monogamous animal, up to 30% of all mating for geese is homosexual pairs. So again, female-female, male-male, doesn't matter, but 30% of all geese have that. Elephants have been found to do this, polecats, bison, all these different animals, giraffes. 9 out of 10 coupling occurs between males and males or females and females. Black swans, they think as many as nearly 1/4 of all black swans in the world are homosexual couples. Many times you hear about penguins mating with other males because that's all they have in a zoo setting. So a lot of zoos have been finding that males and males and females will come together because that is the only thing that they can do. One of the birds that does this actually quite a bit is flamingos. Certain species of flamingos, when 2 males get together, 2 females get together, oftentimes they will steal eggs from other couples and then raise that chick on their own, simply because that is the only way that they can, again, reproduce without actually using their genes. Pigeons do this a lot, vultures, ibis, sheep, lizards, hyenas, flies, dragonflies, lots and lots of different things. So I did want to mention that because it is becoming a very new scientific study. We're finding this a lot more, and it's actually quite a good evolutionary advantage for a lot of these animals. All right, so that is all that I have tonight. If you really enjoyed this program, I'm so glad everyone stuck around. It was kind of some sensitive subjects, and I hope you got some really good information out of it as well. It will be posted later if anyone that you know of really wanted to join tonight but weren't able to, or if you wanted to watch it again or share it with a friend. It will be on our Nebraska Game and Parks Education YouTube channel. Probably by tomorrow afternoon or so. Please feel free also to like our Facebook page, Nebraska Wildlife Education. We also have an Instagram page where you can find a lot of cool Nebraska-based information. And then Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, we also have our wildlife education page on there as well that talks a lot about free lesson plans. There's videos, there's information about Nebraska species, pretty much your go-to for wildlife education in Nebraska. So. All right, so with that, do we have any questions or anything like that? All right. Someone asked, will there be other webinars like this one? Yeah, so every Thursday at 3 p.m., I do a webinar called The Science of. So it dives in really deep into things like Like tomorrow I have one on threatened and endangered species. Last week I did one on moss and lichens. We do everything from body coverings to spiders to birds. So anything Nebraska based, we have a lot of really cool webinars Thursdays at 3. For those of you that have littles at home, we also do a Nature Tales program, which is our pre-K program for kids and families to join in as well. So we read a book and then do a nature topic depending on that book, and then a quick activity after. They only last about 20 minutes, but perfect for pre-K as well. And throughout the year, we do lots of different webinars. We always tell people to like our Facebook page to get that information. We post all of our events on there. If you ever want to as well, check out our YouTube channel. We have lots of things that we've posted in the past too. Let's see. Someone mentioned that the Bauer Birds featured in a thing on Netflix called Dancing with the Birds. Yes, or any of you that like Planet Earth, that David Attenborough stuff, they always mention Bauer Birds because they are such a really cool courtship behavior as well. Someone also said, any interesting details about Santel Crane mating habits? So absolutely, there's a lot of different animals that I didn't even think about touching on today, or just didn't simply have time. So Santel Cranes would be good. A lot of us know that 99%, about 90% of all Santel Cranes come through Nebraska about March, April-ish or so to come here. And they also have a lot of cool dances. They will dance for their female. They do these cool elaborate calls. So yes, they absolutely have really cool courtship things. We unfortunately just didn't have time to cover everything, but possibly in the future, we might do another animal love about some species that we just, didn't get a chance to tonight. So, what are some of the considerations for why an animal might choose monogamy, new partners every day, and everything in between? Great question. Like I said, it kind of depends on the species. So a lot of different birds are really good serial monogamous. Sometimes they're social monogamous. It kind of depends on their environmental situation. It also depends on just simply what species it is. Very few mammals actually have monogamy. If you think of lions or if you think of rabbits, there's lots of different animals that have sometimes harems or lots of different males mate with females, females mate with males. It kind of just depends on their environmental situation. And there are some pros and cons to each. So some of the pros would be that certain animals always be together and they can pass their specific genetic information on. If they're the dominant female, dominant male, they're going to have great genes more than likely, and they will pass those on to their females. Some animals, they choose to be polygamous because they sometimes, like primates, the only other animal besides humans to have sex for fun, simply because it's mysterious. So primates will do it. Other animals, polygamous, it ensures lots of different genetic material being passed on. So for instance, like green sea turtles or sea turtles in general, they could have 5, 6 different fathers in one single egg clutch because the male mated with a lot of females and vice versa. So very good questions. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all you beautiful people. All right. If you guys have any other questions, I can certainly stick around for a couple more minutes here. But again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you again. This is one of the few adult programs that we do. We do a lot of stuff for kids, so it's kind of nice to get some sarcasm in and to talk about some stuff that we necessarily maybe can't talk about with kids or have a different level about it when we talk to kids. So again, if you missed this or would like to share it with someone, check out our Nebraska Game and Parks Education YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and search Nebraska Game and Parks, a lot of our playlists will come up and you can see Science Of, you can view old nature tales, and we have a lot of other cool videos that you can view as well. So again, thanks everyone for joining me. I'll stick around for a couple of minutes if anyone has any other questions, but enjoy your Wednesday night and have a happy Valentine's Day on Sunday. Again, thanks for joining us. Just answering some questions in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to add them. I'm not just staring here weirdly at the screen, just so everyone knows. So Someone asked, how much do you think different mating behaviors can be attributed to context versus innate characteristics? Great question, Andrea. I am not sure if I am the best person to answer that. It's a very hard question. You put me on the spot. I'm not afraid to say I don't know. So I don't know. That's a very good question. Someone also asked about, what about doves? Good question, Janet. Are you talking about just how they mate or kind of things like that? I'm not exactly sure. I didn't come across doves specifically when I was looking. I'm guessing they're more of a monogamous leaning than polygamous, just because they are birds and a lot of birds do that. So thank you, Jamie, for putting that in the chat as well. Yes, Andrea, then looking around, nothing else better but homosexuality. Again, not sure. Depending, yeah, I have no idea. That's a very good question. I know a lot of animals in zoo settings, that's kind of the only thing that they have. And again, they just want to reproduce. They want to mate. So that is their way of doing it. So again, good question. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've taken like a biology class like that. So thank you. Good question. Thank you, Jamie. Our Facebook page is where we post all of our events. If you just go to Facebook and search Nebraska Game and Parks Wildlife Education or Nebraska Wildlife Education. Thank you for doing that. So, all right. And again, if you want to view this again, check out our YouTube channel. It will be posted probably by tomorrow at noon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any more questions, you can feel free to email me and I will answer them tomorrow as soon as I can. Thanks, everyone. My name is Monica, and I put my email in the chat if anyone has any other questions. So thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night.